Hi everyone. This video is a book review video about a book that I have had on my personal shelf for a couple of years. And the title of this book is The Rough-Faced Girl. And it was written by Rafe or Rafe, I don't know how to pronounce it, Martin, and illustrated by David Shannon. This story is actually a Cinderella story. If you don't know how popular the Cinderella story is, Cinderella is one of those ancient traditional stories that you can find in almost every society and culture. Every group has their own little spin on the Cinderella story. However, it has the basic outline of how the story goes. And this story comes from an indigenous American group called the Algonquin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And they are, I want to say, Lake Ontario. I don't exactly know where Lake Ontario is located. I don't know if it's Minnesota or Michigan, but it comes from this group. And I wanted to select the story because for some reason, every autumn, I think about Indigenous Americans. I don't know why. Like, I really want to start reading their biographies during the autumn time. I want to learn more about their traditions. The only time I had this urge when it wasn't autumn was when I was traveling through Arizona, and I felt a very strong presence there, which made me want to read more about them and learn more about them. So for this autumn, I'm going to be focusing on one of their tales. And I saw this book at the library when I worked at the library a couple of years ago, and I knew that I had to have it in my collection because not only was the storytelling very beautiful, but the illustrations were beautiful as well. So before I get started on the book review, let me tell you a little bit about the author and the illustrator. So the author, I really don't know if his name is pronounced Rafe or Rafe, so I'm just going to call him Mr. Martin. So the author has a very wonderful website, and I will post it in the description box below. He is the author of over 20 books, and they have been translated into multiple languages, including Swedish, French, Xhosa, Zulu, Afrikaans, Korean, Japanese, and Portuguese. He's an author and storyteller, and he has appeared in thousands of schools, libraries, festivals, and conferences in nearly every state, including Alaska and Hawaii, and as far away as Japan. He grew up in New York City. He has, a master's degree in English and literature from the University of Toronto, where he studied with such notable figures as Northrop Frye and Marshall McLuhan. He was the first person to ever be granted highest honors in English from Harper College, which is now Binghamton University, where he graduated magna cum laude. Wow, this man is very, very intelligent. Now, when you go to his site, there's something that he does called Jataka Tales. He also does retreats because he studies or he practices Zen Buddhism, which I thought was very, very cool. It says Jataka Tales are mythic sources of depth for spiritual seekers of all traditions. Far from being quaint tales for children only, the Jataka Tales tell us the ways of the Bodhisattvas, those with boundless hearts, dedicated to the happiness and enlightenment of all beings. And if you go on his website, there's, I guess, some recordings, a video of him storytelling. So I think you should go check it out. He seems like a very interesting person. The next person that I'm going to be looking at is David Shannon, and he is the illustrator. Now, it says, David Shannon was born in Washington, D.C. in 1959. He grew up in Spokane, Washington. He liked to draw as soon as he could hold a crayon. It says that in 1983, He started a career in editorial illustration. His work appeared in many magazines and newspapers, including Time, Newsweek, Rolling Stones, and the New York Times, as well as numerous book jackets. David was encouraged to write his own stories after illustrating several books by other authors. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife Heidi and his daughter Emma. Now, what's interesting about David Shannon is that I've actually encountered a lot of his books. I've also read books that were illustrated by him by other authors. So you may know him as the author of David, like David Goes to School, Grow Up David. It's a whole series and it's pretty cool. But the books I really remember that were illustrated by David Shannon were Hiawatha and the Peacemaker. That was a really good book. There's another one that I really, really enjoyed called Encounter. And this is literally one of the scariest illustrated storybooks I've seen regarding colonialism. So I think I may have that in my collection. I don't know what happened to it. But David Shannon is a very talented artist. He has a very diverse style, and that's why I like him. His versatility and how he creates his art. So that is all about the author and the illustrator. So let us get into the story. This book was published in 1992. So if it's 2002, that's 10. And then there's a 2012, that's like 20. So this book is almost 30 years old. Wow. It's almost 30 years old. And it's dedicated to Heidi, Bonnie, and Donnie. That's David Shannon's dedication. And for the author's dedication, it is to the enduring vision of the Earth's traditional peoples. The author has a note at the beginning of the story, and it says, "To see good rewarded and evil punished or justice is rare. Stories, however, pass on the realities not of the everyday world, but of the human heart. One way in which the universal yearning for justice has been kept alive is by the many tales of Cinderella. Indeed, some 1,500 or so versions of the basic Cinderella story type have been recorded so far. In each, the cruel and the thoughtless at last get their just reward, as do those who are kind and good. The rough-faced girl in Algonquin Indian Cinderella is, in its original form, actually part of a much longer and more complex traditional story. Brief as it is, however, the rough-faced girl remains one of the most magical, mysterious, and beautiful of all Cinderellas. Grown on native soil, its mystery is rooted in our own place. I am happy to pass it on to children and parents today." So the story begins right here. It says, "Once long ago, there was a village by the shores of Lake Ontario." I like this little village. It's very quaint and cozy. I also like the muted colors that the illustrator uses. It must be a cold, brisk day. So, story starts off showing the village. Then it says that in the middle of the village, there was a wigwam that had beautiful pictures on the front of the sun, moon, stars, plants, and trees. So this is the wigwam. There's all of these symbols on it. There's somebody going in the tent. And this wigwam belongs to someone called the Invisible Being. Inside the wigwam, there was said to live a very great, rich, powerful, and supposedly handsome invisible being. However, no one could see him except his sister, who lived there too. Many women wanted to marry this invisible being, but his sister said, only the one who can see him can marry him. I think that was pretty interesting. Like, you don't even know what this dude looks like and you want to marry him. It's just hearsay that he's handsome, but okay. I think this is some good marketing that a guy should use. It's like, look, I am very handsome. I'm just invisible. You're just going to have to take my word for it. And I think this is one of the marketing tools that this man used. And what if there was no invisible being? What if it was just a sister pulling people's legs? That'd be kind of cool. Now, in this village, there lived a poor man who had 3 daughters. What I noticed about this is, in every Cinderella story, it's always 3. It's never like more than 3 sisters. It's always 2 sisters and 1 Cinderella. There is another version of Cinderella that I really liked as a child. Let me go see if I can find it. Hold on. It's like by Fred Crump. Oh wait, no, it's not Cinderella. It's actually Beauty and the Beast, but it's basically the same story. Rose for Zamira. It's basically the same story. There's like 2 sisters, 2 cruel sisters in there. Thought that was kind of cool. But anyway, here's the 2 cruel sisters that you'll find in almost every Cinderella story. There's 2 cruel and they're very snotty. They're very just wicked and full of themselves. And the 2 older sisters were cruel and hard-hearted, and they made their youngest sister sit by the fire and feed the flames. When the burning branches popped, the sparks fell on her. In time, her hands became burnt and scarred. Her arms, too, became rough and scarred. Even her face was marked by the fire, and her beautiful long black hair hung ragged and charred. And those 2 older sisters laughed at her, saying, "Ha, you're ugly, you rough-faced girl." And they made her life very lonely and miserable indeed. So in this story, she's called the rough-faced girl because the fire is making her skin rough. It's burning her hair. And like regular Cinderella stories, you have like the cinders, Cinderella. The cinders are burning her. Her face is dirty from the cinders and different things. So there's always something with a fire destroying the beauty or, hampering the outer beauty of the poor character of Cinderella. Poor kid. But we still have people like this in our society today. It doesn't mean like, oh, this girl or this guy is getting their face scarred by fire. It can be like, oh, you're broke, you don't have the right clothes. Oh, you're poor, you don't have the right car. Oh, you work at this restaurant, this fast food restaurant. You don't have any type of brain. There's always somebody out there trying to put a person down just based off of like what they're wearing, their physical appearance. And that's why it's just so sad. That's why some people they'll get plastic surgery. They'll starve themselves. They'll try to get to a certain weight or try to change their hair color and do all of these body alterations and develop body dysmorphia, all because of the words of what somebody's saying. But as I said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because some people might not like the sisters. They might just not like their attitude. One day, these 2 older sisters went to their father. "Father, give us some necklaces. Give us some new buckskin dresses. Give us some pretty beaded moccasins." So they get all dressed up and they're going to go see the invisible being. So look, even though they're all dressed up with their cute little shoes and their cute little boots, their faces are so arrogant, it actually makes them kind of ugly. Like, they look like, I hope you don't trip with your nose all the way up in the air, girl. Better watch where you're going before you stub your toe. And everybody's looking shocked. It's kind of interesting. The more you read, the more you learn or deepen into some type of belief system, whether it's like a religion that you call spirituality or an official religion. In all of them promote the beauty of the heart. And after a while, you stop seeing people's outer. You start seeing what they truly look like on the inside. That's why sometimes I'm just not impressed by certain celebrities. Like, I'll just look and I'm like, I don't know why people keep saying you're just this gorgeous, drop-dead gorgeous person when you have this type of personality, which is very grating, very rude and pompous and ignorant. It's just very difficult, or at least I'm at that point now. Like, I can walk down the street, see beautiful girls and beautiful guys, but just watching how they interact, watching how they're talking to other people without a just cause, really transforms how I view them as a person. There was a guy that I thought was very, very handsome until I got to know him. And now I can't even see him as handsome anymore. I just see him as a very, very troubled, almost wicked person, just based off of his trauma. But I had to get over that physical barrier to get to the core of what was in his current heart at the time. It says, "Why have you come?" So this is the sister of the invisible being waiting outside of the invisible being's tent. "Why have you come?" And she is not, she is not gonna deal with this. This is a lady that can see right through. You'd be like, girl, been there, done that. I know what you're on. I don't want you in my family. My brother is not going to like you at all. There is no way you could see my brother with your little nose up in the air. So the two sisters come. "We want to marry the invisible being. That's why we're here." And she said, "If you want to marry my brother, you have to have seen him. Tell me, have you seen the invisible being?" "Of course we've seen him," they insisted. "Can't you see how pretty we are? Can't you see the beautiful clothes we wear? Oh yes, anyone can tell that we've truly seen the invisible being." "All right," she said quietly. "If you think you've seen him, then tell me, what's his bow made out of?" And suddenly her voice was swift as lightning and strong as thunder. You know what's interesting? For some reason, this page, reading this interaction between them, especially what the sisters said, reminded me of social media, particularly Instagram. We have all the Instagram models. It's like, I'm in the kitchen. I'm making a smoothie in my underwear, and I'm at a certain angle so you can see my 8-pack. Look at me. Look at me. It has to be perfect. Look at all of my filters. That's what I feel like. That's what came to mind when I was reading the interaction between the two sisters and the invisible being sisters. So these are the sisters. Look, they're just like, I don't know what to do. They're whispering to each other, lying. They're just creating lies on the spot, which really gives a insight to what type of characters they are, what type of personality traits that they have, where you can just lie on the spot without thinking about it. You just lie to get what you want. But of course, I've done that in the past too, where I'm just, well, not to be malicious, maybe because I was afraid, but I don't know how much I've lied to get like, oh, I really, really, really want this, so I'm going to lie. I don't think I've done that, but I've done it where I'm afraid of something. But these girls have no filter. They don't care what lies they have to string to get a dude. They really don't care what they have to do in order to get a come up, which shows that they would not really be good marriage material. I mean, there are people that get married for a come up, but it's not really a very healthy marriage. If you're in a relationship, you want transparency, you want at least authenticity. But who are you getting if you are just stringing these lies on the spot? So she says, his bow? They stammered. His, we know. But turning desperately to one another, they whispered, "What shall we say? Let's say it's the oak tree." So they said, "It's the great oak tree." "No," said the sister of the invisible being. "Oh, no. Oh, she saw at once how they lied. Tell me," she continued, "if you think you've seen my brother, the invisible being, then what's the runner of his sled made of?" We know," cried those sisters. So they're thinking of what lie to say. And so they say the willow branch. And the sister's like, "No, no, you have not seen my brother. Now go home." And they said, "Just test us fairly. We've seen him. Just don't ask us all those silly questions." Now, looking at these two, I'm like, you guys are some cute girls. You could probably find a husband if you just change your attitude, but "All right," said the sister of the invisible being, "come with me." And she took them back to the great wigwam and sat them in the seats furthest from the entrance, the guest seats. Soon they heard the footsteps coming along the path. Then something stepped inside. Though they heard breathing, the two sisters still couldn't see a thing. Suddenly a great bow and a beaded quiver of arrows appeared in the air and were set down. But though those two girls sat there, their eyes wide, all through the night they never saw a thing more. And in the morning they had to go home ashamed. Look, you lie, you get empty-handed. So this is the invisible being holding a bow and holding a bag of arrows. You get what you pay for. So poor little rough-faced girl is back at home, and she's asking her father, can she please have some, outfits to wear so that she can go marry the invisible being. And she says, "For wherever I look, I see his face." And I'm like, that's interesting. It's like she already knows him. But her father sighed, "Daughter," he said, "I'm sorry. I have no beads left for you. Only some little broken shells. I have no buckskin dress, and as for moccasins, all I have left are my own old, worn, cracked, and stretched out pair from last year, and they're much too big." So this is her just begging her father for something, which he already gave to the two undeserving sisters. But she said, "Whatever you can spare, I can use." So he gave her these things. So she goes, she takes what he has. She strings herself a little jagged necklace. She makes a cap out of dead trees, and she has these big flippity-floppity moccasins. It's literally like a fashion disaster. This is like a fashion disaster. We can't help feeling sorry for her, and there's all these people laughing. But these are people you can see today. I see it all the time while I'm on public transportation catching the bus. See somebody walk in like, "What is she wearing? What is he wearing? Oh my God." Like, "Oh, I can't believe they're dressed like that." Or some people just, they either don't know better or they can't afford better at the time. She kind of reminds me how I used to dress, actually. I didn't have any guidance. Nobody, like, "What are you wearing, Kiara?" Like, how am I supposed to know? I don't have sisters. Can somebody please guide me, please? Because I literally don't know any better. But this is the best that she could give. Instead of laughing at her, why didn't they come and help her? Why didn't some of them let her borrow some shoes? Why didn't somebody help her, like, hem her dress or something? Like, you could have done something, but you just want to stand there and laugh instead of being helpful to her. But that's just the accuracy of the current world we live in. "Look at that ugly girl," they laughed. "Look at her strange clothes. Hey, go home, you ugly girl. You'll never marry the invisible being." But the rough-faced girl had faith in herself, and she had courage. She didn't turn back. She just kept walking right through the village. There's another girl I knew. I mentioned before my friend Angela, who became a model. There's another girl I knew who's actually a model right now. And they were making fun of her because she had very dark skin, and they just kept calling her ugly. I didn't think she was ugly. I didn't call her ugly because that was one of my best friend's sisters, little sisters. But she ended up becoming a model. She would glam on all of these people. So sometimes people will see something in you and they just get so intimidated. They see the potential in you. They see what you can become. They see the traits that you have. And instead of working on themselves to be better, it's easier for them to tear you down. It's easier for them to stop you from realizing your greatness. And that is what they're doing to this girl. They didn't have to do that. How is she any threat when she's poorer than all of you? That's why you see some people who are at a very high status come down over somebody that's of a lower status financially than them, because that person has something they want. They might have the looks they want, the partner they want, the lifestyle they want. It's very interesting what people secretly desire and what means they do to get it. As she walked on, she saw the great beauty of the earth and the sky spreading before her. This is so beautiful. And look, she says she sees the invisible man's face, the invisible being's face. So you see the rainbow is his nose, his lips, there's eagles, the tree making a face, smiling at her. And truly, she alone of all in that village saw in these things the sweet yet awesome face of the invisible being. At last she came to the lake shore just as the sun was sinking. Behind the hills and the many stars came glittering out like a fiery veil in the darkening sky overhead. And there, standing by the water's edge, was the sister of the invisible being waiting. There's the sister. It says that the sister did not see your external. She didn't just see your face. She saw down in your heart. And she could tell if you had a good, kind heart or a cold, hard, and cruel one. That's why in this picture, she has open arms and a peaceful smile. Whereas in the other one, her arms are closed and folded, and she's just grunting at you. She's just like, look, I don't have time for your nonsense. She said, ah, my sister, why have you come? And the rough-faced girl replied, I have come to marry the invisible being. Yeah, tell her what you want. Ah, said the sister very gently, if you want to marry him, you have to have seen him. Tell me, have you seen my brother, the invisible being? And the rough-faced girl said, yes. All right then, said the sister, if you have seen him, tell me, what's his bow made of? And the rough-faced girl said, his bow? Why, it is the great curve of the rainbow. Hey, this is strong. This is a beautiful picture. Who would have thought the bow was a rainbow? Ah, exclaimed the sister in excitement. Tell me, she asked, if you have seen my brother, the invisible being, what's the runner of his sled made of? And the rough-faced girl, looking up into the night sky, said, the runner of his sled? Why, it is the spirit road, the Milky Way of stars that spreads across the sky. And there he is, great and powerful. Ah, cried the sister in wonder and delight, you have seen him. Come with me. So she takes her inside. And the entrance flap of the wigwam lifted up, and in stepped the invisible being. And when he saw her sitting there, he said, at last we have been found. Then smiling kindly, he added, and oh, my sister, but she is beautiful. And his sister said, yes. So there he is. She's like, whoa, this is my husband. Oh my goodness. The sister of the invisible being then gave the rough-faced girl the finest of buckskin robes and a necklace of perfect shells. Now bathe in the lake and dressed in these. So the rough-faced girl bathed in the waters of the lake. Suddenly all the scars vanished from her body. Her skin grew grew smooth again, and her beautiful black hair grew in long and glossy as a raven's wing. Now anyone could see that she was indeed beautiful, but the invisible being and his sister had seen that from the start. Look at you! And she is very beautiful. I really love her hair. It looks like lotus blossoms. Then at last, the rough-faced girl and the invisible being were married. They lived together in great gladness and were never parted. The end. This was such a beautiful book. And you know what I love about the ending of the story? It doesn't even tell what happened to the sisters. It just stops. She just rolls over her haters. And she's like, forget these sisters. I got a whole new life, okay? And I just really love the story. I think it's a good story to read to your children at nighttime, or just to read whenever you want to feel beautiful or handsome or attractive, just as a reminder to always keep a good and peaceful heart, to always let your inner beauty shine throughout your life. Sometimes we'll be going through some phases where we just don't feel beautiful at all. Like right now, I'm going through that type of phase, because I'm having some health issues, and I just feel like just not the best at my appearance. But I think it happened so I could focus mainly on my spiritual beauty, my inner beauty. I'm like, yes, I might be breaking my teeth. I might be losing different hair or losing weight or whatever. But I'm still beautiful on the inside if I just keep focusing on developing my heart into becoming its best self. Because society's standards of beauty are always changing. One decade it's this, one decade it's the flappers, one decade you have to have a large bust. Right now it's slim thick where you have to have skinny waist and then just really big bubble hips, or have this chiseled abs and chiseled biceps and look like you're just racially ambiguous with different colored eyes that aren't brown eyes, or just all sorts of things. All of these standards that we place on ourselves unnecessarily, instead of enjoying the body that we're living in right now and realizing that we are unique in our own way. The rough-faced girl, nobody else in that village was like her. Nobody else had the compassion that she had. That is why none of the other women in the village could get the invisible being. In my personal opinion, I feel that the invisible being is like a God figure. I don't even think this story could be translated as a romantic story. It might just be the marriage of your lower self and your higher self. It also might be the connection between you and God, or you and the universe. You have to be to a certain level in order to have that connection with the universe. That's why it says in that Genesis story, in the book of Genesis, in the Hebrew Bible, you have a couple of stories where when someone disconnects from God, it is like they're lost in the world. We had Cain slaughter his brother Abel, and he was just wandering without direction, not feeling that connection to God. Or when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil and were cut off from God, their relationships with God was changed. They had to spend generationally, according to that tradition, generationally preparing on how to reconnect with God. There are people in this world who fast to get towards God. There's people in this world who meditate, who give to others, who do good works in order to get to that connection of God in the universe. But in this story in particular, just being kind, just having a compassionate heart, and letting the true you shine will create a beautiful you and a beautiful society. So thank you all for watching this video. I will be back very soon with another book review, and I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful autumn. Bye-bye.